Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Carolina Weather Authority meteorologist Joshua Nagelberg. I know you guys are looking forward to the holiday season here. It's starting to cool off finally after a weekend where my family was putting up Christmas lights outside in shorts as we were in the 70s here in the Carolinas. It was very nice, don't get me wrong. But a nice little front came through here yesterday, and things have cooled off quite a bit this morning. We got down to about freezing at my house, and it's going to warm back up. Unfortunately, looks like Thanksgiving could turn a little bit wet for some of us here in the Carolinas and Southeast. I don't think a complete washout, nothing like the storm we had a couple weeks ago with the remains of Ada. But we're going to talk about what we're going to expect here for the holiday season over the next 4 or 5 weeks. And we definitely have some changes coming. Winter officially doesn't start for another 4 weeks. However, in the meteorological community, those of us who are meteorologists, we just use December 1st through February 28th, 29th, depending on the year, as our meteorological winter. Those are the 3 coldest months of the season. So I'm going to start talking about what we're looking at coming down the pipe. And I know a lot of you have been watching for the tropics that we've had. We'll talk a little about that as well. But we're also going to focus more on some snow potential, temperatures, and maybe even a little bit more tropical mischief coming up here in the next couple of weeks. So if you could, subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you won't miss out on upcoming videos. So let's go ahead and get to what we're looking at here. So our forecast for Carolina Weather Authority continues to be for a mild winter, but not without some shots of cold, and certainly not potentially a snowless winter. I know last year we really didn't have a lot of snow to talk about here. Places like Charlotte, Raleigh, we only really had one storm in February, and that was it. It was a mild winter, but it was also pretty rainy. I think this winter is going to be mild, but maybe not as wet. But the beginning of the winter looks like it could start off kind of turbulent for us here. We could be talking about some significant chill in the air for at least the first few weeks of December before temperatures moderate around Christmas time. So White Christmas looks a little bit more likely as we head farther north of the region, of course. That's not to say we can't get a surprise storm, and me trying to predict that a month out is going to be pretty much impossible. But what we are looking at is pretty much what looks like a guaranteed cold shot coming down for the southeast as we end the month of November and head into December. And this could mean freezing temperatures down to the Gulf Coast, even to places like New Orleans, Mobile, Tallahassee, perhaps down into parts of the northern peninsula of Florida before the 5th of December. So it's been a warm fall, to say the least. That will come to an end here in about 8 or 9 days as we look at much colder weather. Up until then, we'll see some potential thunderstorms, maybe some heavy rain, even isolated severe weather. We aren't going to worry about any winter here for the Thanksgiving holiday and into the weekend. It's going to take at least another 10 days, but we do definitely have some colder weather on tap. So what we're looking at in this region and here is the potential for 1 or 2 systems to bring us some possible snow. Now, where exactly it'll fall and how much remains to be seen. We can only really guarantee that the mountainous areas here and on up into the Great Lakes region, upper Midwest, are going to see snow. In fact, it's snowing today in places like Wisconsin and Michigan for the second time this week. But we'll start to see that snow line drifting farther south. Could get into the southern plains, places to the north and west of Dallas, maybe parts of Oklahoma, which did have an ice storm already in November, if you don't remember that. It certainly was a notable storm. As far as Florida and the Gulf Coast states, right now, the cold air supply is there. The storm track meeting with the cold air is not necessarily there at this point, but something we're going to have to watch. More likely, we could see some trouble coming up the East Coast with the water temperature still remaining above average. So maybe a potential snowmaker in the Carolinas, Georgia, and heading on up the East Coast. But there could be a rain-snow line that we have to deal with as well. So again, it's just speculation at this point. I don't have any guaranteed storm track 2-3 weeks out, but we'll at least try to get an idea of what we can gauge for be some possible spots here coming up. So we did issue an article last night showing at least one run of the European showing some potential winter weather in the first week of December. Now, this is not an official forecast. We know here at Carolina Weather Authority that one model run is not going to be the end-all, but certainly you'll see that the pattern is going to flip here and that wintry weather potential is there. In fact, freezing temperatures going all the way down to Florida. So if you read our article, you'll at least see that potential for cold, and we're going to kind of dive more into that, looking at the European model here. This was last night's run showing potential snow, and we can see definitely the Rockies and the Northwest will have snow. That's pretty much common this time of year. Eastern Canada will see snow, Great Lakes. But we do see, depending on the run you look at, the potential for some pretty significant snow down into the Blue Ridge Mountains. And maybe a one or two storms that we see to start off December coming through the Mid-South here into Missouri and Arkansas, maybe the Tennessee Valley. And the run before it, which I just showed you earlier, did show some potential snow coming up the East Coast. So, of course, there's not a lot of model run consistency, but the very fact that we're at least starting to see that the trough is there, that can show us that potential cold. And I will show you that trough. So right now, yeah, we've had a pretty warm spell. It's going to be high pressure and control here for Thanksgiving, a pretty warm Thanksgiving for most of us into next weekend and even the beginning of the following week. But as we head to the very end of November, notice the ridge of high pressure pumping up across the western United States. This is going to allow colder than average air to spill down into the central part of the country. And with the ridge increasing across the Greenland and the NAO, that's the North Atlantic Oscillation, becoming negative, which means cold air will likely fill into the eastern United States here in December, we start to see a longer-term pattern here that lasts perhaps several days where colder than average weather takes shape here in the eastern United States. How long will this last? We don't think the entire winter. If you looked at our forecast with the La Nina index remaining pretty high, that is, the ENSO staying quite negative, which means we have a La Nina. That favors shots of cold, but certainly a milder than average overall winter. You can see really the first half of December looks like it's going to stay on the cold side across the east before temperatures moderate. And right now, Christmas looks like it could stay mild in the east and even the central parts of the United States. This will be something we'll have to watch for southern severe weather, of course. But up until about the 20th, it stays chilly. So this will put an end to the stormy pattern that we're likely going to see this week into the weekend, and may mean potentially some trouble coming up through the south and up the east coast, meaning some wintry weather potentially coming up the east coast. But again, we'll have some time before we can say that for sure. But this pattern favors winter storms in the east. So we didn't have it last year in the mid-Atlantic region. Maybe this year we could see something before Christmas, before temperatures moderate. That's what I'll be watching for you guys. The temperature forecast remains warm, as you can see, but then cooling off as we head into early next week. In fact, some significant chill with temperatures over 20 degrees below average Fahrenheit in the central Gulf Coast region. And that's going to send a chill all the way down into South Florida. We're going to need some jackets if you're traveling down to Disney World here in the beginning of December. Definitely some cold weather. And the climate forecast system continues to keep that cold air in place, locked in through at least the 15th of December. And really even until about the 20th. But then we've got a thaw coming right on into around Christmas time. So it's going to be a battle zone. This model, the climate forecast system, shows temperatures will be battling between above average and below average in the Northeast. That could be due to a winter storm before this warming air, so that's something we'll have to watch. But overall, the trend remains for a cold first half of December, then transitioning to a warm end of the year, maybe some back and forth heading into the beginning of January. But I will say, we're seeing the European remain warmer than the climate forecast system as we head into the beginning of 2021. So that is the battle that's up for grabs here, and that's what we're going to be watching. So in the short term, if you are doing travel, and I know a lot of folks aren't this year for obvious reasons, we are going to see some significant weather with showers and storms, maybe some severe weather across Oklahoma and Arkansas tonight. And then that storm stretches east and kind of loses some of its punch. It'll send warm air up into the Carolinas, so after a cold morning today in Raleigh and Columbia, South Carolina, it's going to warm up the next couple of days. Thanksgiving could be a little bit wet here, especially for the Northeast, unfortunately. So if you have plans to be outside, yeah, it's not going to be cold, but it could be kind of rainy. But no severe weather expected as this storm shears out by Friday morning. Another storm could bring some heavier storms and maybe localized severe weather Friday afternoon and night over the Gulf states. And maybe a couple waves of heavy rain for Louisiana and eastern Texas heading into next weekend. So maybe not the best of weather along the Gulf Coast next weekend. We'll watch that storm coming up the East Coast. And here you can see this run of the GFS model starts to bring that cold air in very quickly on the 30th. So a week from yesterday, that'll be Monday, and we could see a flash freeze in the mountains here all the way down to northern Georgia on Monday evening, with snow picking up in the ski areas and a significant storm for the eastern United States. More waves of cold will be coming through here in December, and you can see as long as this high pressure builds the ridge in the west, we'll have cold air coming down straight from central Canada and digging all the way into the Gulf Coast states. So beyond the 3rd of December, we could be in for a few bouts of wintry weather. That's something I'll be watching. Severe weather threat is not super high. I know there have been some websites out there talking about tornado outbreak. Something we're going to have to watch tonight across Texas, Oklahoma, and into Arkansas. As we head later on tonight and into tomorrow, the threat for severe weather does drop off a bit. There could be some locally damaging winds, maybe a little bit of hail in here across the lower Ohio Valley down into the Mississippi River Valley. But then as this spreads east Thanksgiving, we lose the threat for severe weather, maybe just a few heavier thunderstorms. The next wave will be more of a Gulf Coast situation as we head on into parts of the Gulf Coast states here. Whoops, I put the wrong map up for you guys, and that'll be towards the weekend. Finally, we'll look at temperatures and look how cold it's going to get here starting around the 30th. Let me see if I can bring that out for you guys here. Yep, around the 30th, we'll start to see nighttime lows dropping below freezing. The night of the 30th, beginning of the 1st, and widespread 20s and 30s all the way down below I-20. And then after that, it gets even colder. The 3rd of December, we could see teens in the mountains and 20s all the way down into parts of the deep south, 30s all the way down into northern Florida, 40s on the Gulf Coast. But this is just a precursor of what will be multiple shots of cold coming down. Finally, we'll look at the tropics. They have been quieter. In fact, things have improved somewhat in the Southwest Caribbean. We do have an area we'll watch that could become one of those waste of a name storms south and east of Bermuda by the end of this week or over the weekend, a subtropical system. And the next name on the list would be Kappa. And we'll have to keep an eye as well on the Southwest Caribbean as we head beyond that. There's some models showing potential Lambda if this one doesn't develop, but not until the 3rd or 4th. And of course, it'll be cold in the east. That big high going to bring some much colder air down, so we're safe here in the Gulf Coast states and in the East Coast. But something we're going to have to keep an eye on here in the Western Caribbean. Maybe we could still have a weak system, which would impact areas that definitely don't need it. And a look at the satellite shows still some rain affecting parts of Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, and Colombia. But certainly nothing showing any organization. The wind shear is definitely increased for us. That is a good sign, but we're going to have to watch this area moving by to the south and east of Bermuda. Not a threat to any land at this point, but maybe a named system could develop in here in about 5 or 6 days. Off of Africa, we do have thunderstorms, a lot of rain down here, but a lot of wind shear, which should keep this from developing into anything significant. And next, we're just going to be watching storms coming across the central and eastern part of the United States over the next couple of weeks. So I think for the tropics, things are winding down for the United States, certainly, and probably for Cuba and Mexico. Central America and the open waters of the central and eastern Atlantic we'll keep an eye on for a couple more weeks, as we could get named storm number 31 and 32. So that's what we're going to watch for you guys. But again, this is our outlook for the next couple of weeks. Definitely colder air coming down will be more persistent and lasting more than just a couple of days. We'll keep an eye on potentially some coastal trouble coming up here, and certainly snow for the mountains and maybe snow for parts of the mid and perhaps even deep south, depending on storm track as we get into the 2nd and 3rd week of December. All right, folks, thanks for joining me. I hope you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. Stay healthy and enjoy your time with your family if you can. And we'll talk soon. Enjoy the weather, and God bless.